As you know, India Power Talk is an initiative to wherein we invite international thought leaders and domain experts to create an easily accessible digital reservoir of their insights, experiences, and strategies on how to revive Indian economy. Steve Jobs was a master at looking into future and observed that everyone here has the sense that right now is one of those moments wherein we are influencing the future. Today, convergence of technologies aimed at human betterment is more than a buzzword and it certainly has the power to influence our future. And to talk on this live subject, we have a highly distinguished guest. But before I ask her to speak her mind, let me take the privilege of giving a brief introduction to her illustrious career. A pioneering economist and technology futurist, Navroop Sahdev is the founder and CEO of the Digital Economist, a global impact organization steering tech convergence for human-centered digital economy in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. A fellow at MIT Connection Science, Navroop is a unique thought leader in the emerging tech space. Navroop is frequently interviewed by Forbes as a subject matter expert on the economies of emerging tech. She was listed as one of the top blockchain influencers in 2018 by Media Shower. Holder of 3 masters in IP management, economies of innovation, and applied economics. She has worked at Harvard University and the United Nations Environment Program. In 2019, she co-authored Blockchain Economies, the first book on the economies of blockchain, and Hyperledger, Blockchain for Business. Blockchain for Business online course, which she has trained over 160,000 entrepreneurs globally. Navroop, heartiest welcome to the India Power Talk. Could you begin by sharing your views on the importance of convergence of technologies and future of innovation?
I think the convergence of technologies is going to be the key driver for the future of innovation, which is really what we're focusing on as well within the Digital Economist. And there's a reason for that. The more interconnected you get, the similar the environment becomes for different players, the more convergence dynamics you see. Another example of convergence of technologies in particular would be telecommunications and the internet, right? So over time, like your phones, they converge, put in, the satellite technologies, right? And at the same time, all the others around geolocation, cameras, and photos, videos, and all of that stuff. When you're talking about disruptive innovation, you necessarily need a host of technologies sort of working in tandem towards driving that.
I see. Great. Now you have so aptly said that it is not about one technology, but what host of technologies can do together. That's the game changer, I guess. What was the key inspiration that made you steer technologies for human and planetary betterment in line with the Sustainable Development Goals?
It takes more than just one component to be the game changer. So a single technology in isolation usually cannot move things a lot. So coming from a practitioner point of view, what we're seeing is if everything else remains the same, a single technology can't really do much. In fact, it's even hard to drive the adoption of a single technology. So it's really the host of these technologies and the look and the feel of it, starts to change. So innovation is about connecting new dots. And I think to kind of go back to the previous and our starting point around what that means to the future of innovation, I think what we're looking at is a much more of an acceleration towards that convergence, because currently the world has a tremendously shared experience in tackling the pandemic.
Could you now share your thoughts on your mission of driving tech convergence towards human-centered digital economy, and also the 5 key pillars of this economy which you have been propagating?
So the first of all, sustainability, taking care of our home, one planet. Second is equity, by which we mean beyond just equality, because equal would vary depending on who the party is that we are talking about, right? Transparency in institutions, in governments, in our key pillars of the society, right? And then we have radical collaboration, which is a call to action for all of the stakeholders to contribute and leapfrog towards that future. We believe that every platform needs to have that is future forward, a digital product that is scalable, a service offering that is focused on current stakeholders. So how do you move the needle? And then finally, the programs which are focused on humans to power these, that it shouldn't just be focused on capital and economic growth, but it should ultimately be towards human betterment, right? So
how are you going about building resilient and anti-fragile companies that share your vision of human-centered digital economy?
I forgot to mention that we also run a center of excellence on human-centered digital economy. So what that does is I see this as a magnet where we pull and attract some of the top minds, scientists, practitioners, industry leaders, technology futurists towards working on what it's going to take to build systems that are not just resilient. That means that they are able to absorb shocks as things change, as the global economy is currently going through a lot of changes, or what we call the triple crisis: the health, the economic, and the social crisis, particularly in the United States, as you saw with the protests, but not just, also around the world. And our call to action is to build systems that go a step beyond, systems that are anti-fragile, right?
Now, in the context of India's creativity, innovation, and intellectual power, how do we enable and empower India's vast human capital? We are a young country, and we are going to remain young for some time. What changes, in your opinion, should India's current education system undergo?
Right. So I kept one of the 5 pillars to, I guess, bring it later, because, and that pillar is decentralization, right? So I'll bring that here. And the reason for that is that simply saying decentralization doesn't mean blockchain, which has been a bit of a rallying cry of that space. But in fact, what's needed is these more federated organizations, everybody that goes through the exact same curriculum. And so they fail to develop the unique capabilities that are inherent to people, particularly young people. Standardization is dangerous. Just today, I was speaking to one of our colleagues, and he mentioned 80% of the engineers in India are unemployed. That is shocking. But, creativity has no limit to it. That's the beauty of it. Human creativity is limitless. So the best jobs, the most secure jobs are the ones you create for yourself, because no one can replace you. They have your unique traits and characteristics.
But I must share with you one more thing. Currently the legal education, particularly, I am finding because of the new national law schools which have come up in India, and they are attracting really good students. In fact, I am seeing some of the law colleges where students securing 98, 97% who could have easily got admissions in medical and engineering, they are opting for law. So today, by law, students are taking a legal profession by choice. How you think can this a large pool of entrepreneurs move to value chain?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there's no one straightforward way to do it. When I look at the world, we still have a pretty deep north-south divide, right? The rich countries and the not so rich countries, the developed and the developing world. Capital is concentrated in the north of the world, the northern hemisphere, and talent and people are concentrated in the southern hemisphere. So that's one divide, right? Right. So simply being talented, being a hard worker, and having, been on innovative journeys, not enough. right? You kind of have to know the right people. My thesis advisor, Ricardo Hausman, who was chief economist at the Inter-American Development Bank and led Venezuela as planning minister, he talks about how he's at Harvard Kennedy. He talked about how it's not just the know-how, it's to know who and know where as well. So, because innovation is context specific and it's not isolated from that, right? People coming from India are very innovative and they're very enterprising. Usually they've done really well all around the world. That kind of goes without saying. So there's obviously inherent, when you are in an ecosystem that has a lot of complexity and challenges, you build that resilience early on that can then be opportunistically deployed, let's say focusing on innovation or building new products and services to improve the world. Now, is there a single solution where we can sort of help everybody in India? I don't think that's the right way to think about it. I think the right way to look at this is, well, what is your target audience? Sure. Understand that target audience really well. If you are focused on an ecosystem like India, even if you focus, on a very specific segment, that would still probably be millions of people.
What would be your advice to women entrepreneurs, girls particularly in India? We need to empower the women community in India. So what would be your one advice to them?
Well, if I were to respond to that question, I would be talking to the men in India.
Yes. And please do that. Please do.
So I don't think it's the women that need to change a lot. I think men need to support women. Nobody's born shy. They're told to shut up and sit down and sit back. So there's a reason for that. So when it comes to women's issues, I think they're not women's issues. They're actually men's issues, because I saw Jimmy Carter's TED Talk a while ago, and he talked about number one human rights abuse in the world is the violence against women, right? Because it's so pervasive that, you can talk about gender, you can talk about race and all those other things, and inequality. But despite all of that, the gender inequality would be a much bigger issue and much more at scale. The best thing that I did with the Digital Economist is that I want to have a group of powerful women around me. Powerful as in when they understand their power. This doesn't necessarily mean political power or anything. So that happened, but manyfold than what I had thought out to do. Because what happens is when you're an entrepreneur, you become a vortex of energy, and you create a lot of energy in the ecosystem, and people get attracted towards you. And then B, what that also did was some of the best men who are empowering women also naturally got attracted to what we're doing. So,
in fact, Amir Khan, when he completed the two seasons of this Satyameva Jayate some couple of years back, and he touched upon a lot of problems of the society. And at the end of the two seasons, he was asked as to what is the one problem which you see across India, which needs to be handled on priority. And he said women empowerment.
100%.
In India, there are a lot of companies who work in the space of impact, in education, water, environment, women empowerment. So there are a lot of people working there. What would your advice be on how can they scale up hugely by use of technology or convergence of technology?
I think so. I mean, that's kind of the point, right? We are at a point in time in history where now more than any other time, the tools to scale, the communities to scale, the availability of opportunity is more than any other time in the past. So that's basically where, again, digital tech comes in. And I think, the Indian ecosystem is an inspiration for the whole world. As the Digital Economist, an example would be our entrepreneur training program, right, which we call it diverse by design. So it touches every single continent and it represents every continent equally. And so the reason for that is that sort of cross-cultural intelligence that it takes to build scalable products needs to be developed and built. and it takes a little bit time, right, to do that. So the response to your question would be that you have the opportunity to engage with global audiences and local audiences, so you can create local impact and you can showcase to the world, use the tools around storytelling, use communities online, offline. It's very cheap to track and document stuff. And I think it comes down to management skills, or for me, I think self-mastery, because it's beyond management skills. Like, how do you deploy these things in a way that drive you towards your end goal, and look for mentors and look for people who've already done it in the past.
Would you want to elaborate upon your entrepreneur training program, Navroop?
Sure, yeah. So, we also kind of expand the EIT into what we call our model to create impact, which is engage, innovate, and transform. The first step is to engage your community. The second is to empower them with the tools to be able to innovate themselves. And finally, I think what it should leave your audience with is a transformation, right?
What's the one message that you have for the audience of India Power Talk?
Empower women.
Thank you, Navroop. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Pleasure's mine.